Manager. While attendees are still joining, we are going to be asking a polling question. Stephanie? So which Vivid special interest groups are you a member of? Please take some time and select the option that applies. Okay, it looks like we've had about 50% that have voted. So if we can go to the next slide. Right. And there's the results from everyone for that polling question. So again, welcome everyone to today's webinar, the all-new HP Storage Operations Manager. Next slide, please. And this webinar is brought to you by HP Software. And my name is Ron Cornwell. I am the moderator for today's webinar. I am the Data Center Automation Special Interest Group Leader for Vivid Worldwide. Next slide. Your hosts for today are Kara McMillan and Vikram Krishnamurthy. Kara is a product manager for HP's software storage management solutions. She has over 16 years of experience in storage resource management software. And Vikram is a system architect for HP's software storage management solution, and he has nearly 15 years of experience in storage software development and design. Next slide, please. Just a couple housekeeping items for today's webinar. Today's live session is intended for all Vivid members. The recording will be posted in the webinar section on the Vivid website, visible to all members. Additionally, today's slide deck and the webinar recording will be made available to you. We will send you the link via email once they are posted on the Vivid website. If you have any questions as we go along, please type and send them in using the questions pane in the webinar control panel. Next slide. Here's a picture of the GoToWebinar control panel that usually appears in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. To submit a question, make sure the question pane is expanded and type in your question and click on Send. So let's get started, and I'll pass it over to Kara.
Thank you, Ron. Do you want to go ahead and advance to the next slide, please? Good morning and welcome. The webinar that we're going to present to you today is about HP Software Storage Management Solution, our newest solution, Storage Operations Manager. My name is Kara McMillan. I'm the product manager for HP Software Storage Management Solutions, including the all-new Storage Operations Manager and our legacy product, Storage Essentials. Joining me today is Vikram Krishnamurthy. He is the system architect for both products. And so the agenda we'll kind of try to follow today is I'll present to you the market challenges, a little bit about the features of 10.0, and then Vikram will then switch over and do a live demo, so you can get a feel for what the product actually looks like. And then we'll go into a little bit of a Q&A, taking some of the questions in the Question Manager. If we do see any questions pertinent in the Question Manager along the way, I think Ron or Michael will bring them up and ask them during the call. So that's fine if you want to break in during the presentation. Okay, so thanks a lot, and go ahead and you can go on to the next slide. The next two slides I have here, this one and the next as well, are only in here as disclaimers. I have exactly one slide in here that has a picture of a kind of a future-looking screenshot. So I was forced to put these in by branding. So we can kind of skip over these real quick here and go on to our titles. So let's take a moment first to think about your typical day at work or at home. Everywhere you turn, you are inundated with information. The exchange of ideas, their availability across a wide variety of business applications and platforms, social media, entertainment, all of this generates an overwhelming amount of information, and it has to be stored somewhere. So growth in application data, business documents, multimedia, this impacts storage management of all storage devices, the SAN, the NAS, direct attached, and multimedia and documents are making up a very large portion of now what we store, of an increasing proportion committed to fixed storage for compliance reasons. We also understand that as all of this data swells, the volumes of messaging goes up every day, and regulations require that more of these messages and documents be archived. At the same time, we have cloud and virtualization offering performance efficiencies, and they're changing the face of disaster recovery and application delivery at the same time while making everything more challenging to manage. Please go ahead. So if you consider that 25% of a typical IT budget is spent on storage hardware, so your SAN, switches, your arrays, your network attached storage, this is a massive amount of storage capacity, which drives a major requirement for IT admins to understand your usage and performance of your storage capacity. And you want to know how that storage is growing, to which server storage is allocated. And for a medium-sized business, let alone an enterprise, this can be an extremely difficult and time-consuming task. So that's why the need for storage resource management software exists. When we took a look at the market specifically for SRM software alone, it's a $1 billion market growing at a 6% annual rate. So that's a really, it's just a hugely growing market. Please go to the next slide. So today's storage technology is quite complex, as I said before. Simply put, data storage technology is very complicated to manage. So in order to deliver immediate access to application data or quickly respond to business needs and ensure that the data is always available and never lost, you as IT personnel must have specialized knowledge, not only in storage, but also in networking, computing, and of course you have multiple vendors, so you have to be able to understand all of their specific interfaces as well. So as that data grows and the number of systems multiplies, this problem is likely to become much more pronounced unless your company pays specific attention to proactive capacity optimization, training of your staff, and to ensure they have enough knowledge on all of these resources. And then your resource utilization and consumption, as well as embracing the inevitable fact that data is growing, depending on who you talk to, Forrester or Gartner, it can be anywhere from 20 to 60% annually. Next slide. So the next thing I'd like to look at is just kind of an example of how these challenges, are what these challenges are in a little bit more detail. So the first is data growth, and what we typically see at our customers is data growth of 40 to 60%. So at that rate, data is doubling every 18 months. So most of that growth comes from unstructured data. A storage admin would be responsible for growing also the OpEx spend for managing this data. But that spend's pretty much flat these days. And in some cases, we know that there's pressure on the storage manager to reduce that expenditure. So as you can see, there's a widening gap there between the rate of data growth and the expenditure of managing that data. So how do we bridge that gap? That's the question. So the next piece of the puzzle is complexity. Complexity comes about from different solutions and technologies being implemented to address specific business challenges. If you add in multiple data centers, multiple geographies, this introduces even more complexity. And specifically from a storage management perspective, we want to be able to see where all this complexity comes from. And on the next slide, I'm going to take a look through all of that from the specifically from the storage management standpoint. So if we look at end-to-end storage management, how do we get here? So enterprise storage is provided by externally managed storage. So do you remember we went from local iSCSI storage to external storage? So the reason we did that is because in moving to external storage, we created a pooled resource that is more efficient and flexible, and that's much easier for you to manage. Storage then can be allocated to systems from a central pool of storage without having to physically move that storage. So the sharing of storage should mean that fewer physical disks are required in comparison to local SCSI, and that storage can now be centrally managed. And shared storage was, of course, a prerequisite for clustering and virtualization technologies that we rely upon shared storage to implement. And then we have physical disks. We have them sliced. We have them diced via RAID or whichever storage virtualization technology you have, and eventually presented to host systems as LUNs via SAN zoning in the SAN fabric, and then LUN masking on the storage system. The next, we add in the fact that each host system will be running applications to meet some sort of business requirement. And on top of that, further complicating things is the fact that different components of an infrastructure are typically managed via siloed teams. So I'll visit customers. Oftentimes the case is that storage is managed by the SAN storage team, hosts are managed by the server team, and applications are managed by an application team. So among all these teams, the end-to-end management of the storage resources themselves becomes even more complex as multiple or heterogeneous vendors are added, which is often the case at almost every customer we visit. So every single layer of this abstraction, whether at the host, virtualization of hosts, storage, then provisioning on storage, each layer of this creates scope for storage to be misconfigured or lost. But it is possible to manage that infrastructure complexity. Next slide, please. So with one solution, you can bring order to that complexity. Managing heterogeneous storage assets from host to fabric to storage across all your locations, improving your storage capacity planning to understand how much storage you have and then reclaim that unused storage space, reducing the cost of storage operations by increasing your staff's efficiency, strategically planning for your future investment in storage, and then gaining also a full insight into your storage environment with storage analysis. So I would like to introduce Storage Operations Manager. Our slides are turning a little bit slowly today. Sorry about that. Storage Operations Manager is built upon HP's Network Node Manager framework. So if you are familiar with NNMI or it used to be OpenView in the past, if you're a user, you will recognize the screenshots I have here from Storage Operations Manager. You know, NNMI is a time-tested and extensible framework. It's very reliable, and it enables us to have massive scalability to be able to discover and report on your rapidly growing storage infrastructures. So I would like to take you through in the next few slides some of the priorities that we had for Storage Operations Manager and in how we address those. So one of our first priorities was to have a radically simplified solution for you. When we designed Storage Operations Manager, simplification was probably our #1 objective. We made the product customer installable. It installs very quickly. Probably our quickest install on silent mode was in 10 minutes. So it has a very, very quick time to value. It also has a very responsive HTML5 based UI with a lot of intuitive dashboards, which you'll see later on in the presentation when Vikram does the demo. In each of those dashboards, you'll be able to drill down to useful metrics in a minimum number of clicks. This was direct feedback that we had from our customers in the past, that they wanted to get the data with the fewest clicks possible. Another simplification in Storage Operations Manager is the ability for us to release new device content in a modular fashion. So as you add new device models to your environment, we will be able to develop for those devices off-cycle from our releases, and then we would upload it for free to HP Live Network. This is our content sharing platform, and you'll be able to download that free. And so that would be true of both device content and reporting content as we build out new reports. Next slide, please. So next, I'd like to talk about scalability. So thanks to the NNMI framework, we are able to offer a massively scalable platform to be able to manage ever-expanding storage infrastructures. The platform is able to accommodate customers with flat SANs and environments using NAT and multi-tenancy as well. Our reporting, I'd like to call out as well, we're using Service Health Reporter. Service Health Reporter, or SHR, is included with SOM, and it's got a powerful Sybase IQ database data warehouse behind it, and its report content is also included, and storage content is also included for SHR. That data warehouse behind the SHR allows for massive amounts of data from multiple SOM installations to quickly be rolled up and resolved at a global level. So you'll be able to see from different geographies, or if you deploy more than one Storage Operations Manager server in a single data center, you'll be able to roll those up and report out at a global reporting level in Service Health Reporter. Also in the area of scalability, I'll just call out that we're also, our discovery is element-based, which will be able to provide much faster and fresher data for more accurate decision-making. Next slide, please. So, of course, SOM helps you to solve two of the main use cases for storage resource management. Those would be capacity and performance optimization. So in the area of capacity optimization, we are able to identify sources of unused storage capacity. And so I'll be able to allow you, and Vikram will allude to this later in the demo as well, to show you how to reclaim your storage from other that you may have lost out on your host. It may have been allocated to a host and never used. And we'll be able to show you how you can reclaim that storage and then, of course, repurpose it. And that would allow you, at that time, then that allows you time to delay your spending on additional storage hardware. In the area of performance management, we can also help you pinpoint areas of degraded performance within your infrastructure. And then when you address those, optimize the performance of your SAN. Next slide, please. In the area of storage analytics, this is an area we really want to get into. You know, we know we collect a massive amount of storage data, of course. So when we correlate this data, we want to be able to help customers analyze and, again, in the future, predict areas of concern in the storage environment. So in short, if you have a metric A that's on a switch and metric B that's on an array, how can we correlate those to offer insight into the SAN? So this would be especially useful in the area of virtualization where customers have, say, thin provision storage on a virtual server environment. Go ahead to the next slide. And I just want to kind of make a note on our customer feedback. We run a program called Early Product Review. In that early product review, leading up to any release, we have a subsection of our customers take our early product or our beta version into their environment and then test it themselves and give us their feedback. So prior to releasing Storage Operations Manager in March, we had some of our largest customers worldwide participating in our early release program, and they provided us a lot of good feedback. And of course, we were able to incorporate much of that feedback into the product. And we had an overwhelmingly positive feedback from all of those customers in the program. So if you're out there and you do want to join the program next time around, keep that in mind. We do like to have lots of customers participating in our EPR program. So I think with that, I'd like to actually, we'd like to show you what the product looks like. I think right now we'll switch over to the demo, and then I think we have a polling question we'll ask right before the demo. So if you want to, and Stephanie, if you could put the polling question up there, we'll see what kind of answers while Vikram is preparing to put the demo.
Okay, the polling question is live. So the question is, what are your top challenges with storage resource management? Select all that apply. The answer choices are multiple tools, consoles to manage storage. Capacity optimization is the second choice. The third choice is performance optimization, troubleshooting problems. The fourth choice is managing storage growth. And the fifth choice is managing storage in a virtual server environment. So the votes are coming in, Kara and Ron.
It looks like almost all of them are tied. But multiple tools and consolidating is slightly ahead of everything else. And that's pretty much in line with what we see at customers. That's the whole idea of having one tool to manage everything. Yep, there you go, about 70% have multiple tools, but everything else is not far behind. So it's good to see that kind of validates is what we're doing with the solution, and just to help you manage all of, to consolidate your tools and manage your capacity optimization. Okay, so I'll turn it over to Vikram if you're ready to do the demo now.
Yes, Kara, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so good morning, good evening to all. So basically, today I will try to demonstrate 2 or 3 use cases of Storage Operations Manager, mainly around capacity management and topology, and if time permits, I'll try to walk you through some of our inventory views. So this is the the landing page of the Storage Operations Manager, which is an asset dashboard.
Are you sharing? Vikram, I don't think the sharing is working right now.
I am. Oh, okay. Apologies. Can you see my screen now?
Oh yes, now we can see it. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So this is the landing page of Storage Operations Manager by default, which is asset dashboard. So this is a simplified dashboard of the various types of devices in your environment, which will be hosts, storage systems, virtual machines, and switches, which are basically classified by the device profiles, or the different types of based on the model vendor. So it's the pie charts are you can be drilled down into the pie charts. So you just click on that, you get a filtered list, of the particular pie chart or the type that you mentioned here, the device family, as you can see. So the navigation is through the the breadcrumbs. You don't use the the browser back button to navigate. So it's you can navigate back and browse through whatever you are interested in and really what you want to take a look at that. So this kind of presents to you what's discovered in your environment, what are the different kind of devices, what are the operating system platforms, and the switches and the storage systems that I have in my environment. So moving on to the environment capacity dashboard. So typically we have the multi-level drill down dashboards, and what you see here is at the environment level. This is the dashboard for all the devices in your environment. Just gives you a snapshot of what your environment looks like right now. So the environment summary is a count of your devices. Typically, you will see that hosts will be the maximum number of devices in your environment, and in this case, it's about 75% is hosts. Then you will have the switches, and then storage systems and your NAS devices. And then for each device type, we have selected one metric that we present at the environment level. So that you can gain a simple perspective on of the capacity status in your environment at that point of time. So for example, here you look at the storage system pool capacity, and what this tells you is what is the total pool capacity and of all the arrays in the environment level, and then how much is being allocated. That means how many volumes have been created out of these pools, and how much space is available for expansion in this environment. So here you can see that about 75 to 80% of your storage in this particular environment, the data center that I have discovered, you can see that about 75 to 80% of your environment is the pool capacity is being allocated. That means you have you have scope for about 25% expansion within the pool capacity. So the next is this is the storage provider layer, and next you jump down to the host logical capacity. So which kind of tells you how the storage that is allocated from here is really being utilized in the host level. So here you can see that out of the total pool capacity, I have allocated about 75% of them, and of all the storage that is typically allocated, about 50% of it is being used, and about 50% is roughly more than 50% is free. So now what this number doesn't add up to the pie here, basically because you may not have discovered all the hosts in your environment and collected all the file system logical capacity details on those. So this is for the discovered hosts. Among the discovered hosts, we will present you a snapshot of how much of the file system capacity is being used and how much is available. So here you can see that my utilization levels are slightly on the higher side, but I don't have the danger of running out of storage in the near future, because in the consumption layer I still have about only 50% of consumption. Moving to the NAS system capacity, we have typical, a typical NAS system capacity, file system capacity, and you can see here that what's free and what's really available. So finally, we have the switch port utilization dashboard. So this kind of tells you the number of free ports available in your switches and to expand your fabric. So here you can see that roughly more than more than a quarter of your ports are free to be available. And overall, if you look at the system, we seem to be fairly well placed at this point of time, and we have fairly decent allocation levels and moderate consumption levels of capacity, and there is scope for expansion or addition of new hosts into the or storage devices into the system without having to procure additional fabrics or switch devices. So fairly it tells me in a snapshot that I'm in an okay situation. I don't need to worry about any immediate cost of procuring additional devices in my environment. So, but this is one perspective. Now you really want to drill down into more details, analyze what is the while pool capacity is what has been carved out of raw capacity, so you want to understand how the raw capacity itself, utilization itself is happening, and then gain different perspectives on the storage system side. So you just come to the environment summary and click on the storage systems pie, and you are taken to the another dashboard, set of dashboards, which are for all the storage systems in your environment. So this is what we call the storage system capacity dashboard. So with this dashboard, we are trying to present three simple perspectives on the capacity utilization in your environment. So the first perspective is by the is on the raw storage in your environment, which is typically the raw storage on the array, and then we will give you the top 10 devices by raw used capacity and the raw available capacity. So now what you want to look for here is if a device shows up in the top 10 of the raw used capacity, and then it's not showing up in the top 10 of the raw available capacity, then it kind of indicates that the storage device is relatively running out of raw storage. You can drill down into that storage and analyze how much of that raw storage is being used in the pool level. But here, if you see, we can see that this storage device named Sunflower is right up there in terms of the raw use capacity with about 53 terabytes, and it's also right up there when it comes to the raw available capacity, which is with about roughly about 4.7 terabytes of available storage. So this tells me that overall this is a very heavily configured, a heavily provisioned storage system in my environment. So similarly, you can look at other devices and where they appear, and you can see here that the device Olive is right up there, and we don't need to worry about procuring new, more disk storage to that one right now. And similarly, you can make some simple inferences. So what you see here is for some of these the XP and P9500 devices, you have used up all the raw available, all the raw storage, and you don't have any of the available raw storage in the available column. So the next perspective is to understand where I stand in terms of the current, having to provision the more storage. So there you see the logical unallocated storage, which is the storage available in my pools, configured pools for creation of more volumes. So here you can see the top 10 arrays by unallocated storage, which is sorted by the storage, and you get a chart perspective of how the unallocated absolute storage measures up against the overall storage. So, for example, you can see here that though the array Sunflower appears in the top 10 in terms of available storage, you will see that in terms of the percentage utilization of your allocated pool storage, it's pretty much up there. It's almost completely fully utilized. So though it has about a terabyte of storage free. So you can you know that you are fairly well placed in this based on this parameter, and we don't need to worry about unallocated storage right now, and we seem to have enough of it. That's kind of what you infer from there. So the next perspective we have is basically around storage reclamation. So that perspective is provided by the logical unmapped storage. So when we say unmapped storage, what we really mean is that you can see here that the unallocated storage is in the green and the allocated storage is in the blue. So what this means is, out of the total pool size of, for example, for this array Gravity, out of a total pool size of about 28 terabytes, I have used up 22 terabytes of the pool volume, pool storage to create multiple volumes. So when I create multiple volumes, I have to map them to different hosts using the host security group configuration in order for that storage to be consumed by the hosts or the servers. However, what happens in unmapped storage is you create these volumes and you don't expose them or present them or map them to any of the hosts or servers in your environment. So then that volume becomes kind of gray space. So it's just sitting there and consuming storage, but it is not being really consumed by the server layer because it's not exposed to that. So that's kind of what we can directly reclaim. How do you reclaim that storage? What you do is you kind of either delete those volumes, in which case the deleted volume space comes back into the unallocated bucket, or you go and map that to different servers or hosts, in which case it kind of comes to the mapped storage and it's really not reclaimable space. So in either cases, you have reclaimed the storage from the unmapped storage column by either moving it, by either utilizing it and allocating it to the host layer, or by reclaiming that space into the unallocated pool storage. So that's kind of how we go about analyzing the different storage capacity perspectives in the environment based on the 4 dashboards. So these dashboards only show the top 10 of your environment, and if you want to look at all the arrays in your environment, you see a small table here which presents a tabular presentation of all the metrics that we showed here. So what you do is, if you want to play around with it, you just click this small button and pop it out of this into a separate browser window, where you can resize it, and you can see here that we have added all the perspectives here. So here is the raw used and available and the percentages, and then you have the unallocated, unmapped percentage, and all the storages. So this is, you can sort it, filter it based on criteria, or you can really play around with this table and understand how. For example, if you are interested in looking at all arrays that have a raw use capacity of more than a certain value, so you could create a filter, and you say show me everything that is, for example, greater than 5 terabytes. So let's say 5,000, right? So then this gets filtered, and you can see that you have the list of all storage that has more than 5 terabytes. Oh, oops. Let me make that a higher number, 50 terabytes. So, okay, so that looks better. So that's how you go about analyzing the storage system capacity in your environment. So the next level of drill down is provided by clicking on the particular storage system you see here, in which case it takes you to the element level dashboard, the dashboard for that particular storage system. It's one more level of drill down, and there you can see all the capacity and the collected performance statistics on that particular device. So this is a consistent navigation mechanism. Everywhere you see select an element, you can launch a dashboard of that element, where you get a quick summary of the storage system. So you can see that this is this is a 3-PAR storage system, and this is this is successfully discovered in the environment, and we can see what is the raw capacity, the logical usage, and when you drill down into the element level, you can also analyze the post-trade allocation and the post-trade usage metrics. This is basically the pin provisioning allocation and the pin provisioning physical usage metrics. So then you see some other data on the device, like for example, what are the configured performance collection schedules for this device, and some of the collected metrics on that device. You can see the total data rate, the I/O rate, the response time, the queue depth, volume rate, and more metrics at the storage system level. So this is how you work with environment capacity, and it works pretty much the same for all the device types. For example, if you drill down into the host, you will see the host.
Vikram, I believe we've lost you on audio. There you go. He's dialing in again. Kara, is there anything to note about the screen we're seeing while we get Vikram back in?
Oh, well, I was just going to say while we're waiting for Vikram, I could. There are a few poll questions that I'd like to take a few minutes to answer. We had a bunch of pollers ask about different integrations, so I'll just kind of go down the line. So the first one I saw here was a request for a UCMDB integration, and the answer to that is we have a beta right now in process for UCMDB integration. If you are interested in that, my contact information will be on a slide later in the deck. I would urge you to please contact me, and then we could work with you. We're even able to right now, under NDA, show that to customers. So if you are interested in the UCMDB integration, please contact me. And then the other two that we are working on for future, we had requests for a VPV integration here, and let me see, there was another one here for an integration, which was, it's not actually an integration, it's for object storage and Helion content. And object storage, Helion, and VPV content are all on my product roadmap. So again, I would urge you to please contact me so I can understand your use cases. What you would, how, if your particular customers are looking for something very specific use case-wise, I'd like to understand that a little bit more to ensure that as we build that out, that we're meeting those, we're solving those problems. And then I had one more question here from Nick Lee. Where is it? About element-based discovery. So this is different. If you were familiar with Storage Essentials in past, which is Storage Operations Manager, of course, is a successor product to Storage Essentials. If you were familiar with how Storage Essentials did discovery in the past, what you had to do in SE was schedule your discoveries. So you had to schedule each, all of your hosts and storage elements into a discovery, and then they would kind of run successively. And if you had an issue with any one part of that discovery, say it got hung up on an array, anything after that array would have to be sitting around waiting on that array to finish discovering before a discovery for the next element. And so the difference with Storage Operations Manager is every single element is discovered independently of every other element in the environment. So if one array gets hung up during its discovery, it will not affect any other element in the SAN that we're discovering. So everything will discover independently of everything else. So that's where I'm talking about. That's what I mean by element-based. And then probably we wouldn't get into this in the demo today, but just kind of further drilling down into that is the idea of being able to configure those discoveries very specifically. So you can say how often how fresh the data should be for any specific element. So for instance, you want to say, I don't want my 3 parts to be discovered any further apart than 15 minutes. Then you can do that for those arrays. Or on the flip side, you can also specify blackout period. Say you have a backup or something going on in your environment in the middle of the night. You can say from 2 to 4 in the morning, don't do any discovery, don't bother these elements, because I have some very important work going on here. So you can set blackout periods even down even to 15 minutes, or so you can really control the amount of data and when you collect it.
Hey, Tara, I'm back online.
Okay,
yeah,
great.
Sorry,
so I'll
sorry
let you
for that.
Yeah, no problem. I was just answering some questions.
Carrier here disconnects the call after 1 hour, so I think that's what happened. Sorry about that.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, so can I continue with the demo?
Sure. Yep. Please do.
Okay. So we were looking at the host capacity dashboard. So it's pretty similar in navigation to the storage system capacity. We have 4 dashboards for the host as well. So the first 2 are by file system used and free space, and the next 2 are pretty interesting. These are again reclamation stories. So one is the unused volume group capacity. So this is basically all the the capacity that is unconfigured or unused in your volume groups, and this is what we call as gray space. Because it is from the perspective of the disk, it is utilized because the disk is assigned to the volume group. But if you really see, that space is unused because you have not configured volumes out of the the volume group. So it's pretty similar to the unallocated storage available in the pool space in a storage system. And the new metric that we have here, which is not a used and which is an absolute number, it's not a used and free concept, is what we have as unused storage. So basically, these are all the volumes that are assigned to the host. So if you remember previously, I mentioned that you move the storage from unmapped to mapped to reclaim that storage and make it usable by the server layer. But you could still not use those disks that show up on the server to configure anything on them. You could neither configure a volume group on that, or not configure a file system, or not allocate it to any application like Oracle ASM. So that is what we call as white space or unused storage. And so what you see here is basically the top 10 by that, and you could just kind of drill down into that, and then you get down into the element level dashboard of the host, and you see that for this particular storage system, you have an EVA system that is presenting roughly about 2 terabytes of storage, and then you can drill down into your okay, for some reason the unused storage is not showing up here, but ideally it should show up in this column. So that's kind of how you Kara mentioned that as and when you create every abstraction layer of storage configuration, you have a scope for misconfiguring and losing storage. So that's kind of what we are trying to highlight here at different levels. That you could leave storage unused at the raw storage level. You could forget to create or assign them to pools. Once you assign them to pools, you could forget to create volumes out of those. Once you create volumes, you could forget to map those to the host. And once you assign it or map to the host, you could really forget to configure them or use them in the host. So here we have the workflows to basically highlight the capacity parameters at every single configuration level and clearly bring out what is used, what is unused at every single level. So that's kind of how we have designed the environment capacity dashboards at the different levels for the host, storage system, and switches is pretty straightforward. It's just the used and unused ports, and you have similar navigation for the NAS storage systems as well. So this is basically, we show the total used and free for a NAS storage device. So that's kind of completes the capacity of the management main use cases within the system. So let me quickly jump into the topology maps and how we show the system topology and how we can navigate into the individual element topology based on that. So what we do here is that we have adopted a paradigm where we don't we don't paint all the elements in all the fabrics at one shot. So what we do is we just select the fabric on the top of the list and we just paint it. So if you want to see more things, you may want to select the fabric that you want to see, or you just say show all. And once you select the fabric filter, you just apply the filter and the map quickly shows up. So what you see here is that this is a HTML5 based UI, and it paints about 200 and roughly 300, just less than 300 map objects in pretty quick pretty quick time. So you can zoom in on the map. You can zoom in at different levels in the map, and you can zoom around with this pane that you see here, and you can see what area of the map that you want to zoom in on. We have one more level of filter available to view the maps because if you show all the connections across all devices, it could get cluttered. You may want to look at only the host to storage, the host to switches connectivity or to the array and switch connectivity. So just select the appropriate filter and I apply, and then you see that the map kind of reduces, and now you paint the filtered map in your environment. Oops. So there you see the filtered map, which shows only the storage systems and the switches in your environment. So the map also supports a search functionality. You could just look for a particular array. For example, let's look for sunflower, and you can see that it auto completes as well. You can select the element that you are looking at, and immediately you will see that the element is highlighted. It is zoomed in, brought into focus, and then as soon as you highlight an element, the analysis panes or the summary for that shows up in the analysis pane area in the lower half of the screen. So you can see that this is a storage system, which is a 3-part system with a 3-to-1 hardware level, and you can also see, for example, map count is number of licenses that is being consumed by this device, and access point is the is the IP address or the proxy used to discover this particular device, and you can see what is the data collection policy that applies to that. And since this is a storage system, you could at a high level you could browse through the different the logical thin provisioning and all the other screens that we saw in the element dashboard in a neatly arranged tabbed manner. If you want to drill down into the details, you just double click on the element, and you will be taken into the detailed form view of the particular system. You will notice that the view below doesn't change, but what we are presenting is more details on the storage system in terms of the inventory. You can see the volumes, and you can see that the UI is pretty responsive. By the way, this is not what you're seeing here is not canned data. This is all live discovered data in our system, and you can see that you have close to 3,000 volumes, and it loads pretty quickly. I can scroll down to anywhere in the middle. It kind of comes up pretty fast. You can see that what is the scroll window that you are really looking at. And at every single tab that you see, if you want to view it in a bigger, wider screen or wider resolution, you can just pop out of that window like we did earlier, and then you can look into that in more detail. So we show the disk drives. We don't collect disk drive data by default. You will have to configure that to be specifically corrected. So you can see the storage pools, and you can see the the host security group configurations. You see the replication pairs. You can see all the replication target source and the copy type and all the other details. And then you can see the pool logical usage. So what you see here is the logical usage at the array level, and what you see here in the map above is the logical usage, the pool usage that is split at the individual pool level. So you add all this up, it kind of shows up, adds up to the last entry in this map. That's kind of how you look at this. So you can look at all the thin provisioning metrics. You can, this is a pretty wide table. You could expand it. You can look at all the different thin provisioning numbers, and you can aggregate them using the allocation and the usage tabs in the analysis pane. So that's kind of how you navigate the inventory data for a particular element. Now, what you may want to do is, for example, you can show all the systems, and you may want to look at an individual, element capacity for an individual, rather the topology for an individual element, in which case you try to look for a host. For example, this I know is one of our hosts, and I just select this host Innova. And as you can see, it gets highlighted here. And if I want to drill down into the topology, what we have provided is a way to navigate the topology of an element. So instead of presenting all the storage paths that are visible to a particular host, what we do is we provide a mechanism to basically navigate the topology based on different criteria and zoom in on specific paths that you are interested in. So what I can do here is I can right click on the element, and here you see a bunch of options, and I can say launch topology. And then you can see that the element connectivity of that particular host shows up here, and I can browse further details based on multiple filters available here. So I can, for example, I can choose a particular volume for which I want to analyze the path here, or I may want to see a bunch of volumes based on some criteria. For example, I want to see all the top 25 volumes by size. I just apply the filter. Okay.
Vikram, I'm sorry to break in on you there. In the interest of time, we're coming to the top of the hour here, and I just wanted to give some answers back to some of the questions in the question manager, if you don't mind.
Yes. I think I'm almost done as well. So that's the point I wanted to highlight was that you look at your connectivity in the system topology, and you just zoom in on an element that you're interested. If you want to drill down on that, just right-click and navigate the topology for that particular element. So I think that kind of covers the capacity management and the topology use cases. And as you said, since we are at the top of the hour, I'll just hand the control over to you for your question and answers.
Okay.
Go ahead, Kara.
Thank you, Vikram. So if you want to go ahead and go back to the deck, I'll kind of finish up there. I know we had someone in the question manager asking for our contact information, so we'll get back to anyone who had to drop there at the top of the hour. I just wanted to finish up just kind of a call to action for you in the audience. We'd like to invite you to please learn a little bit about SOM for yourself. We have a 3-minute animated video short up on our hp.com Go page that you can find, and also from there you'll be able to download SOM and try it out for yourself. It comes with a 60-day license instant on, so you can take the download and try it out for yourself, and then let us know what you think. These are some of the contact information. I'm here, Kara McMillan at the top. Michael is the product marketing manager, and Dan is the product manager for partners. So if any of you are partners, you may know Dan. He does put out a monthly newsletter. I'd also like you to, if you or your customers will be at Discover from the 2nd to the 4th of June, I'd like to indicate that we'll have not only a booth on the show floor in the HP Software Pavilion or area, but we'll also be showing some future items in the tech showcase in the NDA area. And then we'll also be presenting 3 sessions, and the one I'd like to specifically call out is the session on the 3rd that will be presented with our customer, Philip Sellers of HTC, who was one of our early product reviewers. So with that, I think I want to just address a couple of questions if people still have time. Let me see. There's a question probably for Vikram on how do you manage thin provision volumes over provisioning of storage capacity in an array. I don't know if that's Eugene lost a call actually, so that's something we may have to follow up with afterwards because he's no longer on the call.
Okay.
Another question we had was licensing. We license by MAPS, Managed Access Ports. What we did for Storage Operations Manager was simplify our licensing. So we have a basic package called Premium. Within that, you are licensed by ports, of course, and within that, you get capacity management, chargeback, showback, NAS management, and reporting. And then we have another level above that called Ultimate Performance, and that includes everything in the premium package. Plus, you'll also be able to do performance management as well. So what we had in Storage Essentials was called Perf Packs. So you'll be able to do that performance management in Storage Operations Manager at that ultimate perf level. And then within each of those 2 packages, we have tiering based on volume purchase, right? So if you're purchasing more maps, then you would get a lower price per map. Another question I have here is, can I install SOM in an already installed NNMI? And so we don't actually, SOM is not, it's a separate product from NNMI, so it doesn't install with it. The product that actually we do install with, if you have existing, is SHR. So if you have an existing Service Health Reporter for the reporting part, if you already have that in your environment, then you can pull in your data from SOM into Service Health Reporter. Let me see. let's see, there was a question here about, oh, first of all, someone asked when it's going to be released, and it's already released. We released the product on March 31st. So again, if you go out to our hp.com/go/SOM, you'll be able to download the product right now, and that's the trial version. It's the actual product. The only thing you're missing from that is the reporting. So you'll be able to just be able to navigate the product just as Vikram demoed just now. And the other question that maybe Vikram can answer is, like NNM, can you see network device issues in the topo view that are affecting the performance of the SAN? And I think
that's more of a monitoring. Sounds more like a monitoring use case, Kara, and that's in the roadmap. The version 10.0 doesn't, that doesn't support monitoring, proactive monitoring use cases yet. So that should come up in the roadmap.
Great. And along with that answer that the monitoring is in our roadmap and coming up, it's on our roadmap in a next release. There's a question also from Nick about is there a time frame for SOM to integrate with OMI or OpsBridge? And the answer is yes. As soon as we have all of the monitoring and eventing fleshed out into the product, we will also be integrating with OMI or the OpsBridge. And I would encourage you, if you or your customers will be at Discover, to please visit our display in the NDA or the Tech Showcase, and we can talk a lot more about that under NDA in the Tech Showcase at Discover. Let me just see if I missed anything else. I know Warren had to leave the call, and he had a question about 3PAR, OneView, and Cloud System. And those are all things that 3PAR we already support in the product, of course. And OneView and Cloud System are I assume he means Helion, are things that we have on our roadmap for the future as well. And I think that looks like all of the, I think we addressed most of the questions here. Have all of the SE supported devices been ported over to SOM? That's a good question as well. We ported the most, okay, so it depends. Some of the devices that we supported in SE are pretty old and legacy devices that we may not ever port over to SOM because they're end of support or end of life themselves. Other devices we have been porting over on a prioritization basis based on how high priority they are at our existing customers and how high priority, like newness and freshness, within the vendors, right? So HP, EMC. If there's something new that everybody's using, those are things that we've been porting over. What I'd like to also point out, as I mentioned during my presentation, was we will be able to release these devices on an ongoing basis. So we'll be rolling out new device support as time goes on to the HP Live Network. And if you are part of our, I think you can sign up for it on the support services online. You can sign up for alerts from us, and then you'll be alerted whenever we do upload something to HP Live Network so that you could go out there and download it. So anytime we have new device content that's released off-cycle of an actual product release, we'll post it out to HP Live Network, and an alert will get sent to you if you're signed up to receive alerts. So I think that's all the questions. I think if you go to the next slide, I think we have a bit of there we go. It's for HP Discover, how to register if you would like, and Vivid is offering a credit for you if you register through their Vivid link. And then next. And Vivid is offering, I don't know if Stephanie, you wanted to step in here and discuss the deep dive sessions that Vivid is offering upcoming. You can register for those on their website, and this is just kind of a list of those that you could register for.
Great. Thank you, Kara. This is Ron. As you can see, there are several Vivid deep dive sessions that are being offered this year. at Discover on Monday, June 1st from 1 to 5 p.m. These sessions will allow you to hear real-world implementation experience and examples from practitioners who are in the field solving business problems with HP software tools every day. Cost per session is only $99 thanks to our sponsors. This is an incredible value which normally costs $495. So register for these sessions through your new or existing HP Discover conference registration. Next slide, please. And thank you for attending today's webinar. Please be sure to complete the short survey after the end of the webinar and opt in to receive more information from HP Software. By opting in to hear more from HP, you'll be entered to win it to a drawing for an HP Slate 8 G2 tablet. Just a reminder that the webinar recording and slide deck will be posted to the Vivint website. In the next few days, you will receive an email with those links. Thank you. And Stephanie?
Well, thank you all for attending today's webinar. A big thanks to Kara and Vikram for your wonderful presentation. And in the next day or so, you'll receive an email, like Ron said, with the link on the Vivint website to view the on-demand recording, see the slide deck, and the Q&A in the coming week. So thanks again. Enjoy the rest of your evening, day, or morning, wherever you are, and we'll look forward to seeing you at another Vivint webinar, an HP webinar. Take care, everyone. Thanks again.
Thank you. Bye-bye.